Hey everyone, and welcome back to Ontario Cryptids. I hope all of you are doing well, and today is Christmas Eve, so I'm going to start off by wishing all of the OC community a Merry Christmas. I hope all of you can celebrate Christmas Day with family and friends and stuff your bellies until you're content. So Merry Christmas to all. If you have an encounter story that you would like to share, then please forward your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. I would be honored to share your story with like-minded people. Now, sit back and relax as we begin with today's episode. This first one takes place on June 14th of 1995. We're going to the Yukon Territories, Canada, and the nearest town is Carmacks. I was about 14 years old when my friend and I went to go visit my mom in Carmacks, Yukon Territories. My mom didn't know I smoked, so we snuck across a graveled road into the bushes to share a smoke. We decided to sit on a trail in a bush that led down to a little lake, with me facing the road and my friend, let's call her Sarah, facing the bush. As we were sitting, we both said that we can smell something funny. It reminded me of a burning dump. I started teasing her, saying that she needed to take a shower. Then Sarah blurts out, "There's a Sasquatch!" And I thought she was joking. Sarah got up and started to run, and I looked behind and saw a huge furry man run across the trail. His waist was as tall as me, so I didn't get a chance to look up. All I wanted to do was run. The funny thing is that every time that I walk by this lake, I can hear, and this is only late at night, someone taking steps with me. If I stopped really quickly, you can hear something stop right after me. Some friends didn't believe me, so I asked them to take a walk with me. And sure enough, the same thing happened, and I've turned them into believers. Bigfoot sightings are very common in the Yukon. I've heard many stories. My aunt says that she went camping and she heard something in a bush and she threw a rock and the rock came back to her. My grandma says that they like to mimic other people, which might explain it following my footsteps. My mother said that the same thing happened to her when she ran away from home and was staying in the bush. She said that she could always hear something in the bush following her. This leads me to believe that maybe they follow some families generation to generation. This next one takes place in August of 2021. We're going to Martin County, Florida, and the nearest town is Tequesta. I work in Stewart and live in Jupiter, so my commute is up and down US 1. I had been working late, so driving south just after sunset. The road was quiet, with just another pickup truck approaching my truck from behind. I noticed something very large walking on the west side of US 1, walking north, so approaching me. It was just outside the Jonathan Dickinson State Park. My best description of whatever it was would be a huge football player in a full shoulder padding, 6 to 7 feet tall, wearing a full-length, long, shaggy fur coat. But it was August in South Florida. Who would be wearing a fur coat? I slowed way down as I became level with it, and the truck that was behind me had now passed me, so I also had the benefit of their full beam headlights. The other truck slowed way down as it approached it, then accelerated at a high speed away from it. Someone else has the same story to tell. When I was parallel with it, I got a better look. It had the face of an ape with a bump on the top of its head. The fur was long and looked white, kind of like a dirty white shagpile carpet. It just continued to walk. It did not turn to look at me or run away, just focused straight ahead. I haven't told anyone up until yesterday because nobody would believe me, but I was just at a prospective client's home who works in Jonathan Dickinson, so I mentioned it. He seemed to believe me and told me I was lucky because I'd seen one, and he hasn't. This next one takes place in August of 2005. We're going to be heading to Douglas County, Nebraska, and the nearest town or city is Omaha. We live near Omaha, Nebraska. I'm speaking on behalf of my mother. My mother first saw this thing when she was 10 years old. You have to understand that the way the neighborhood we live in is set up, the house my mother lived in when she was 10 is less than a quarter mile away from the house that she lives in today. All of the yards in that neighborhood sort of connect with somewhat of a gully in the middle. The first time my mother had any knowledge of this thing, her sister and her were swinging on a double-tire swing in her backyard. The next thing my mother knew, her sister had jumped off the swing and was running and screaming. My mom didn't know what to do, so she ran after her sister into the house. Her sister was hysterical, saying she saw something in the back wooded area of their yard. I guess my grandpa did find some sort of large footprint. This was the first incident. The next incident was when my mom was outside her house when she was young. She saw a large thing covered in hair walking across her driveway. My mom told me the thing walked almost as if it was bow-legged. She also said its shoulders moved from side to side as it walked. Now my mother lives in a house I grew up in. As recently as 2 years ago, something has been seen in my mother's backyard. It hasn't only been seen by my mother, but also by my sister, who frequently stays at my mom's house. About 3 years ago, April of 2002, is when my mom had her most vivid and frightening encounter with this thing. She was letting her dogs out in the backyard, and they both went barreling towards the fence surrounding our yard, barking. My mom walked out in the yard thinking nothing other than the dogs were just being dogs, and was standing waiting for them to use the bathroom. It was then when she noticed something moving in the next yard. She said it was about 7 feet tall and standing behind a tree. She said as fast as the dogs had run up to the fence to bark, they were running back to the house yelping. My mom said she froze. She always tells me that the fear that she feels when she sees these things is overwhelming. She said it then leaped from behind one tree to another. That's when she started running. She said she looked behind her and it was now coming forward towards her. She ran into the house and locked the doors. My mom lives in a brick house, and she had also told me that on occasions she will hear something that sounds like something beating or throwing itself up against the side of her house. My mom is completely afraid of these things. My mom doesn't really talk about this to anyone because she feels that they'd all think she was crazy. We don't know what to do, but we do need help or advice. My father also grew up about a block away from my mom. Their family has their own stories from the same area. Other than that, we've never asked. We've come to figure that anyone else in the neighborhood who've maybe seen something probably thinks everybody will think they're crazy. We've never asked anyone around here. I hope you all enjoy these encounters today. And I do believe that maybe these occurrences are happening generational through family members. I have also surmised that if you are encountering one type of cryptids, like Sasquatch for instance, you may also be encountering apparitions or UFOs. Food for thought. It's time to thank the current members of the OC community. If you want to learn more about the OC membership program, please head on over to the Communities tab on my channel to learn more. The current members are Jim, Teresa, Elizabeth, and Joe in Alaska. Thank you so much for your support and Merry Christmas. If these stories remind you of an encounter that you may have had and would like to share, then please forward your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. I would be honored to share your story on this channel. Thank you for listening until the end. I truly appreciate it. Please hit the like button on your way out and smash the subscribe button if you're new to my channel. Have a great weekend and a very Merry Christmas to you all. See you all next week, right here on Ontario Cryptids.